Hello my friends, in today's video we will take a look at Panasonic Lumix S5. Lumix S5 is basically supposed to be a more pragmatic package for a wider audience. It is an interesting mixture of some very high-end features and a couple of cost-saving measures. Panasonic has put all of that into a much smaller and a bit more affordable camera. In this video we will be taking a look at the performance and the feature set of S5, and I will try to help you decide whether it is the best camera for you. I was only able to test the S5 for 2 days, so these will be my first impressions, and I will try to make a full review later on. The first, and for me the biggest difference in comparison with other Lumix S cameras, is the size. S5 is basically the same size as the Sony a7 III. That means that it is actually smaller than the GH5. It weighs 714 grams and it is one of the most travel-friendly full-frame cameras on the market. According to the comments under my S1, S1R and S1H videos, the size and the weight were the most criticized things about the S line, so this is definitely a step in the right direction. The handling is still very good though. I like the position of all of the buttons and dials, and the grip is quite comfortable, especially at this size. I also prefer having separate mode and dry mode dials instead of status LCD. It has almost the same control elements as the S1, but without the extra weight and clankiness associated with that size. The build quality is the same as with the other S-line cameras, which means that it is great. It uses a magnesium frame and it has very nice rubberized surface. All of the buttons and dials have very nice clicky feedback. Overall, it definitely feels like a premium product, so I have no complaints about the build quality. S5 uses the same sensor and processing as the S1, so you will basically get the same image quality. The only difference is the dual native ISO, but we will get to that later. S5 RAWs are not compatible with editing software yet, so I will demonstrate the image quality using mostly samples shot on S1. So this is 24 megapixel full frame sensor, probably backside illuminated, and it is probably the same sensor that is being used in a7 III and Z6. Just like in the S1, it has no low pass filter. I think that it is still a great sensor with excellent dynamic range. It gives you a ton of options for editing and you can push it very far. Regarding the ISO performance, it is not possible to open RAWs yet, so I can't tell you how much difference does the dual native ISO make. It will be at least as good as with the S1, so very clean up to ISO 6400. ISO 12800 will be usable in most cases, and ISO 25600 will be in case of emergency option. For stills, it is an excellent sensor, so I have no complaints there. The biggest limitation is that this sensor is only capable of full sensor 4K video up to 30p. 50 and 60p are shot in APS-C mode. That is better than no 4K 60p at all, but it seems like we will have to wait for a new sensor to get full sensor 4K 60. Because there is no low pass filter, you might see some moire in difficult scenes. The colors seem to be the same as with the S1, so kind of halfway between neutral Sony colors and pleasant but unrealistic Canon colors. That is not a bad thing in my opinion. Standard picture style is a bit too contrasty for me, so personally I prefer natural and 709L. It also has 96 megapixel high-res mode from the S1, which is great. There should be some processing improvements, but I haven't had time to test that. By far the most frequently asked question about the S5 that I'm getting is how good is the autofocus system. For stills it is actually pretty good. It is significantly slower than the best hybrid systems, but it is accurate. I think that there is also a bit less DFD wobbling than before. In low light or backlit situations it starts hunting a bit more, but it is still accurate. The tracking is pretty solid and I was getting quite high hit rate in my testing. It is definitely not the best autofocus system for sports or wildlife, but it will handle usual situations completely fine. Regarding the video autofocus, there are some improvements over the S1, but it is not a game changer. Again, it will still handle easier situations pretty well. It may be a little bit slower, but also a bit more reliable and consistent. Face tracking is actually really good. If you move relatively slowly, it will be able to track you very well without much hunting. If you start moving faster or you use wide aperture, it won't be able to keep up. In more difficult situations, it can still be fooled. Close distance to infinity focusing is actually pretty good if there is enough contrast in the scene. There is still that last bit of hunting as it finishes the transition, which will still give away that it is a contrast-based system. In very difficult situations such as with a backlit or low contrast subject, it will still have problems. I am fully aware that this is a ridiculous testing sample, but the thing is that Sony a7 III can do this all day long like it ain't nothing. S5 is now a bit closer to GH5 and G9 autofocus, but those are also still significantly better. That probably comes down to that sensor readout speed, which is higher on Micro Four Thirds sensor. Again, it will be fine in reasonable situations, but it isn't a completely foolproof system reliable in every situation. The video specs on the other hand are great. These are actually better than with the S1. S5 can shoot 4K video up to 30p in 10-bit 422 internally with no crop. It can also shoot 4K 60 in 10-bit 420 internally, but with 1.5 times APS-C crop. Besides that, it offers full V-Log with claimed 14 stops of dynamic range. Fortunately, there is no paid firmware nonsense with the S5, so we will get everything out of the box. I have tested these video specs on the S1, and the video quality in terms of details is always great. Of course, it is downsampled 6K to 4K video, so it looks beautiful, and there is not much more that I can say about that. The dynamic range in V-Log is indeed excellent. In combination with 10-bit codec, it captures a lot of color information, so we can push it quite far. How much difference does it make in comparison with 8-bit? In V-Log, it makes a big difference. There you really need a lot of information in the file to extract all of the details and colors. The combination of 10-bit footage and V-Log is excellent. If you don't do heavy color grading, it doesn't make much difference, but it is great to have these options in such a small package. S5 can also shoot 4K 60p, but it is 1.5 times cropped. The video quality in this mode is still very decent though. Full frame full sensor 4K 60p would be great, but that is a sensor limitation. S5 will also be great for low light video. It has the same dual native ISO system from Panasonic S1H. I will have to make some more tests, but to be honest, I don't see that much difference between the S5 and the S1 or other IMX410 cameras. There is no recording limit if you shoot in 8-bit. If you shoot 10-bit, there is 30-minute limit. It got a little bit warm during my testing, but I haven't had any serious overheating issues. Regarding the IBIS, S5 offers 5 stops of in-body image stabilization. Of course, it can't be as good as with the S1, simply because of the size that is required for an IBIS unit. The efficiency of in-body image stabilization is very similar to Sony a7 III, and I'm completely fine with that. That is just what is possible to do with a full-frame sensor in such a small body. Personally, I am more than happy to trade IBIS efficiency for more compact camera. It is still fine for static shots up to about 50mm and for panning. If you need better IBIS, you have to get much larger S1 or GH5 or XT4 with a smaller sensor. It can also work together with lens stabilization in dual IS2 system, but I haven't had any stabilized lenses to test that with. Viewfinder has 2.36 million dots and 0.74 times magnification. That is below average by 2020 standards. Sony was criticized for using a bit larger EVF with the same resolution even in 2018, so by 2020 standards, I just can't say that this is a particularly good viewfinder. The display is very good though. It is a 3-inch screen with 1.84 million dots. It is very sharp, bright, and pleasant to use overall. The display is fully rotating. Personally, I don't like rotating screens at all, but I think that the target audience of the S5 will appreciate fully rotating screen, so it is probably a good decision. Regarding the speed, S5 can only shoot 5 frames per second with autofocus continuous and mechanical shutter. That is below average in this category and only a half of what A7 III can do. The buffer can only hold 27 RAWs, which is less than a third of S1. If you want to shoot fast action with Lumix camera, G9 is still the most capable one for that. S5 has 2 SD card slots. Unfortunately, only one is UHS-2 compatible. It doesn't affect any of the video shooting modes, so it is not that big of a deal with the S5. Having said that, I expected dual UHS-2 slots at that price point. S5 uses brand new BLK22 battery. As the name suggests, it has 2200 mAh capacity. It is rated for 440 shots, which is okay, but not outstanding. In my testing, it lasted about half a day, which is quite fine, but A7 III will still last about 30% longer. The battery can be charged through USB-C, but unlike other S-line cameras, it doesn't support PD standard. S5 can be purchased with 20 to 60mm f3.5 to 5.6 kit lens. This is an extremely versatile lens and I like it a lot. It is not an optical masterpiece, but it is good enough for all-round use. You can have it for $300 extra or euros in the kit, and in my opinion it is definitely worth that price. Regarding the comparison with A7 III, the A7 III has much better autofocus system, it can shoot twice as fast, it has about 30% better battery life, and importantly, the best lens selection of all systems. I also prefer Sony's picture profiles, but that is a matter of preference. S5 has better video specs, better user interface, high-res mode for stills, and better display. Of course, there are other differences, but these are the most important in my opinion. Will I switch from A7 III to S5? No, I will not. A7 III still has some significant advantages that are important for me, but I am considering adding the S5 to my collection. One of the main reasons for that is actually 16 to 35mm f4 lens, which would be a great match for the S5. High quality 16 to 35 f4 is not really available for other systems, so that is an advantage of L-mount in my opinion. L-mount lens selection is also improving, and some f1.8 primes will be available soon. I have also tested a couple of very good L-mount lenses, and I have talked about that in my S1 2020 review linked in the description. To sum up, Panasonic Lumix S5 is a master of some traits, but not necessarily a jack of all trades. There are some areas in which it is among the best cameras in class. Those are mainly the video capabilities. I really appreciate the option to have full-frame 4K 10-bit 422 in such a small body. The form factor, handling, user interface, and the build quality are great. It also has a great sensor and it is very capable stills camera with a 96 megapixel high-res mode. Unfortunately, it also has some weaknesses. The FD autofocus system is still far from matching hybrid PD-AF systems, but it will be fine in reasonable situations. With 5 frames per second autofocus continuous shooting and small buffer, I also can't recommend the S5 for fast action shooting. Low resolution viewfinder and only one UHS 2 slots are in my opinion two severe cost-saving measures at this price point. If you can appreciate the strengths of the S5 and you can live with the shortcomings, it will be a good choice. It will be especially suitable for filmmakers and content creators who want advanced video features and full-frame sensor in very small package. So that's it for this video, thank you for watching, I hope that you liked this video and that you have found it to be useful. Stay tuned for more videos and maybe consider subscribing if you don't want to miss my future content. I appreciate your feedback in form of thumbs up or thumbs down. If you would like to ask anything or share your opinion, please do so in the comment section, and see you next time.